Okay, today we're going to take a look at simplifying trig expressions that are quotients or sum of quotients. And we're only going to get through the front side of the page today. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing right here is want to review over our main strategies. Last time we met, we did write some of these strategies up on the board. We added one more strategy to the list, and hopefully you remember what that is, the distributive property. And so if you're not sure what to do, these are some of the main ideas you can keep in mind. Of course, the most important thing, the most important strategy we have is still number one. Okay, so don't forget writing everything in terms of sines and cosines. Let's take a look at problem number one. So we've got sine x over tan x, and what could we do first? Well, let's write everything in terms of sines and cosines and see where that leads us. The numerator is already a sine, but the denominator, we can write the tangent as sine over cosine. So there would be our first step. What would we do next here? Think about it. Which one of these do you think could be helpful? Well, hopefully you saw that we have what is obviously an enormous fraction. And so let's go ahead and instead of dividing by a fraction, we can multiply by our reciprocal. So let's see what happens there. This is going to end up then being sine x multiplied by the reciprocal of our denominator, cosine x over sine x. Next step, we're almost done right here. All we need to do is now clean this up. So what do? Well, we have a fraction, so let's write this also as a fraction, and obviously that'll be sine x over 1. And let's think about our rules for multiplying fractions. Well, hopefully you thought, well, we can cancel first, and that's a great idea. That leaves us cosine in the numerator, 1 in the denominator, but dividing by 1 doesn't do anything, so we're left with cosine x. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try number 2. It's going to be similar to number 1. Then we're going to get into some tougher ones. So pause it right now, please. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. Hopefully you had number 2 work out nicely. Hopefully your answer was cosecant x. Let's see how that turns out to be. So let's go ahead and start by writing everything in terms of sines and cosines again, with the cotangent being cosine over sine. And in our denominator, we have a cosine. And again, let's go ahead and take this and multiply by the reciprocal, so this stays the same. Multiplied by, and if we, oops, I'm sorry about that, messed that up. If we would go ahead and flip the denominator right here, first of all, let's write it as a fraction. If we take the reciprocal, we're going to end up getting 1 over cosine. And now we can finish it like we finished the red problem up here. Cosines cancel. And we're going to be left, of course, with 1 over sine. And be very careful with the 1 over sine. We get that obviously by doing 1 times 1, 1 on the top, sine times 1, sine on the bottom. But 1 over sine, we can clean that up and we can make that into cosecant. So that would be our final answer. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and move right on. Number 3. In problems like number 3 and number 4 and number 5, we need to think about one basic thing, which is this. If you are given a fraction, any fraction, and so I'm going to go ahead and just write some fraction up here. What you can do with any fraction like that is you can go ahead and think of the fraction bar as a grouping symbol. It's kind of like parentheses. What does that mean? That means you can put parentheses around the top, parentheses around the bottom, and that tells us do what's inside first. Do what's inside first on the bottom, and divide at the very end of the problem. And that big idea is what we're going to end up using in number 3. So let's take a look at number 3 together. So in our numerator right here, we got cosine times cosecant. I'm going to put parentheses around it. Means we got to clean that up first. And then cotangent, well, there's not much to clean up here. But let's go ahead and start this problem up. First thing, well, let's look at our strategies. What do you think would be a good first step? Hopefully you said write everything in terms of sines and cosines, because let's start there. So this obviously is going to be cosine x times the cosecant is going to be 1 over sine x. So there's our numerator. The denominator is cotangent x. Next step, let's go ahead and clean up the numerator. This is cosine over 1. Does anything cancel? No. So let's multiply straight across here. And that's going to end up giving us cosine x over sine x in the numerator. Denominator is cotangent x. Now, there are lots of ways to finish this problem up. Probably the quickest way is to realize that, hey, cosine x over sine x is really cotangent x. So the numerator here is really cotangent. Denominator is also cotangent. And now we can just cancel our cotangents. Becoming 1s, 1 divided by 1 gives us a final answer of 1. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to go ahead and try number 4. It'll be very similar to number 3. So pause it and give number 4 a try. Then we'll go through that together. Do your best. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and try number 4. What I'm going to do is the same thing I did in number 3. I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around the entire numerator here and parentheses around the entire denominator. And let's try to clean these up first. On the top, we have cotangent times tangent. I'm going to write everything with sines and cosines, kind of like before. And if we do that, we're going to end up for the cotangent, of course, getting cosine over sine. And for our tangent, we're going to end up getting sine over cosine. Denominator. In our denominator, we have sine. That's already obviously written in terms of sines and cosines. We'll write it as sine over 1. And cosecant, 1 over sine. All right, next step. Let's go ahead and clean this up. In the numerator right here, where the cosines cancel and the sines cancel. And so the whole numerator, 1 over 1, 1 over 1, the whole numerator just becomes a big old 1. The denominator, the sines cancel, become 1s. Denominator also is 1. And 1 divided by 1 gives us 1. And we'll stop right there. The homework assignment that I want you to do for tomorrow is the worksheet that's titled Trig Identity Practice Quotients. The problems I want you to do are 1 through 6 from the front and 13 through 16 on the back. So 1 to 6, 13 through 16. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully I'll be back tomorrow. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.